self-respecting people, no matter what their ethnic origins, abandon a place if it becomes fixed in their minds that it is an undignified or insulting place to be. Taking neighborhoods that exist already, and maybe they're not very attractive, and maybe they've only got poor people in, and maybe they've only got immigrants in, but thinking, what can you do here to keep these people here and to make them feel that they're valued? So you have to pay attention to what the people in the neighborhood want. One thing they want is they don't want to live in an undignified place where it brands them as second or third class to be living there. So there are quite, not expensive, but thoughtful things that can be done to show it isn't a second or third class place. Tree planting, traffic taming, putting in markets at the right time. That's one thing that would be meaningful and hopeful for the future.
Dublin's inner city has many derelict and underused spaces. It's the lowest level of tree cover and green space available to anywhere within the country. This is common within all cities. This has significant effects on the well-being of our communities throughout all of the inner city. The existence of derelict and underused spaces create a feeling of not being safe, of the potential for dumping or antisocial behaviour.
It is often the smaller derelict sites in our urban communities that have the biggest impact on their well-being and safety. Local communities often feel forgotten, or worse again, ignored. Bringing unloved urban spaces back into productive use can contribute to improving the health and well-being of local people, reducing social inequalities, and addressing climate change.
The United Nations has said that the healthiest cities are based on walkability, the introduction of nature, and the creation of coexistence spaces. Communities work best when they have a diversity of healthy, connected spaces.
The Co-op's 2022 case study is celebrating the reclamation of derelict and underused land by local communities for positive community use, for the enjoyment and fun of children, families, older people, and for local communities to gather together in. The 4 projects in this case study were initiated as a response to the underused or derelict sites attracting antisocial behaviour and illegal dumping, which effectively made these spaces a no-go area for children, older people and the local community in general.
The Co-op has identified 5 livability factors that affect communities within the inner city. These include ageing well, noise levels, air pollution, reclaiming derelict and underused land, and access to play space for younger children.
The reclamation of these spaces for community gain not only made them available for enjoyment by old and young alike, but also improved the other livability factors. For example, by developing a wildflower garden to deal with illegal dumping, we found the other factors also improved.
The projects we are going to show in our case study include the use of existing spaces to reactivate an underused space. This is Liberty Park in Dublin 1. Shelmalier Road in East Wall in Dublin 3 is a wonderful example of rewilding a small pocket of land that really was subject to quite high levels of dumping and antisocial behaviour. In the Liberties in Dublin 8, there is an extensive project of both recreating a new city park and creating an exciting community garden with a particular focus on the native Irish honeybee. And in Dublin 7, we have an exciting project which seeks to renovate an old lockkeeper's cottage that will create a hub of community activity along an underused piece of the canal. We're here in Liberty Park in the heart of Dublin 1, We're less than 100 metres away from Busaras and Talbot Street, one of the main shopping streets in the centre. It's a lovely but underused piece of parkland. There's beautiful trees, there's lovely surrounding buildings with many, many different nationalities and communities present here in the city. But for various reasons, often a perception of safety, this is an underused and neglected little park right in the city.
However, for a number of years, Liberty Park was lost to the local community and to those working in the surrounding buildings. It was a no-go area as a result of antisocial behaviour, including on-street drug dealing and drug misuse. This little park sits in a densely populated area, and the importance of reclaiming this green space for positive use cannot be underestimated. However, the co-op was part of an extensive engagement process to win back Liberty Park for the local communities. In association with key stakeholders, there is ongoing work to reanimate the park for positive use. For example, the park is now used by local people to walk and get fresh air in, for Tai Chi, for yoga classes, for Halloween and for other community events. There is an active residents group liaising with Dublin City Council to install park furniture which will attract older people and to programme events on a regular basis.
We collaborate and participate in many festivals throughout the inner city. For example, the Big Scream here in the northeast inner city, and in the Liberties Festival, the East Wall Festival and Stony Batter. The use of festivals in CICAP has enabled us to bring many different nationalities, cultures together. We need a common space, a space where they can mix freely and enjoy activities together. From this, we're able to build healthier, happier communities.
We're here in Chamelea Road in East Wall in Dublin 3. This is the Chamelea Road Wild Garden. A few years ago this would have been a really black spot for illegal dumping and stuff like that. A couple of years ago, local volunteers from the area, working in conjunction with Dublin City Council, got this wild garden. The surrounding area was put in and the wild garden was planted up. So currently now, as you can see, it's a lovely spot to walk by and to look at the flowers. Throughout the season, the colours change. It's an amazing spot. A lot of the people now passing by will stop here and look at the plants. We're hoping maybe in time that we can put in some sort of information points that will explain what all the plants are and how it helps the biodiversity in the area. Maybe every 5 or 6 weeks, the Pride of Place group will come in and do a gentle walk through the area just to pick up any rubbish that may blow in. But we can definitely confirm that the illegal dumping here has not just dropped significantly, it's probably 100% it's stopped. A few years ago when you would come through here, there would be quite a lot of black bags of rubbish left, so that's gone completely. Now all we have to deal with is just the blow-in rubbish that might come in. So for us locally now, it's great to see the butterflies and the bees, not just in your back garden, but in their own wild garden environment. And as you can see, it's a whole ecosystem in itself. So we're really looking forward to see how this develops. The building here possibly could have went for development a few years ago. Due to ups and downs in the economy, it didn't go for development. Had we have not done the wild garden at the time, we'd still be looking at waste ground. So I think it's important for other inner city communities to be aware of when developments become vacant like this, is that maybe have a short-term plan. We don't know how long this is going to last for. We've had it for a couple of years, but like everything else, it may go for development, and we may be looking for another location for a wild garden. So, even to be aware that nothing lasts forever, and it's maybe good to have a short-term plan to enhance a particular parcel of land that's not being used, and that the community are involved even in that sort of stage.
Where we operate in Dublin 8 in the inner city, there's a real lack of access to green space. So at the moment we're in Bridford Street Park, which is absolutely beautiful, but this only opened up a couple of months ago. This was a derelict site. It's where Bridford Street flats used to be, and they were knocked down, and then it was derelict for 20 years. And there's a number of similar sites around here that are just derelict and awaiting some sort of redevelopment. But human beings need green space.
One of the instigators for the need for this park were a group of activists who guerrilla gardened and took over this space to show the value of green space in the area. The community garden here is a legacy to Richard Talpin, who really brought the aspects of community engagement and growing and the need for green spaces and the return to nature for everybody. Other aspects here you can see are the hill, which is a viewing platform for all the city, but also goes back to the fact that the Liberties was the key point where the Vikings settled and was the highest point in the whole area surrounding Dublin. Also here you have the bird boxes here on the walls of the Marshalsea prison, the former debtors' prison, a legacy of this part of the city. We have seating area, we have wild garden areas, we have play spaces, we have informal warm seating areas, all built around the need for that people should have a comfortable, enjoyable, thoughtful, mindful place to sit out and enjoy the city. The area was in dire need of play space, particularly playgrounds. It has been shown in studies that children in the inner city have less than 1 A3 piece of paper to stand on of green space, one of the lowest of anywhere in Western Europe. In addition, children spend less time in the outdoors than a high security prisoner. Here is an example of a whole new playground that has been created after long consultation with the local community. But what's really interesting is that even here, the children come outside of the play area and play chalk and play hopscotch and play all the informal games that you would expect children to be able to play.
So I think with beekeeping you have an opportunity to kind of package together lots of problems that individually seem impossible to solve. So you have antisocial behaviour, you have dereliction, you have local underemployment, and you have lack of access to green spaces. So with beekeeping, because it's a social enterprise, we deliver free annual beekeeping courses and employ people as beekeepers. We can generate revenue from charging people to host hives, so you're creating employment and training opportunities. We are putting hives in sites that would have been derelict, so we're creating access to those sites. Then we're delivering comprehensive planting programs in those sites. So we're turning something that would have been concrete and ugly into something that's beautiful and that benefits people's health to access. And then because the sites are being returned to a very positive usage, antisocial behaviour stops because people start to respect the site.
And when I got here, it was just all abandoned. No one really paid attention to it. It was full of drug needles, it was full of beer cans. But the scary thing about the drug needles is that you can't get in here, so they were actually throwing them over, I haven't had that problem since I painted the wall outside, so that made a difference, And then when we claimed, it was just all abandoned. So I wanted that feeling that you were in the countryside or in the meadow for people when they came in here, because you can't really hear the walls block out the sound, so that really helps as well. So I was hoping that people would just have the feeling that they weren't in the city anymore when they come in here. They can just get lost in the space. I grew up in Oliver Bond, so I've never had a space like this where people brought me, and it's like the countryside, and I learned about plants and I saw a lot of bees. It's a one-off experience for the kids in the inner city. So once we start checking the air quality in the area, that's going to be great for the community, because it helps them with arguments about air quality and why it's important to green spaces, because everything's about data. Once you have data for things, your arguments become easy. And the Liberties is the most densely populated part of the world, and 58,000 people live here. We've no green space. We've the smallest amount of green space in the country per person. We're creating a situation in the flats where you're drowning in concrete. So you really need any little abandoned space we need to grab hold of and turn it into something for the community and turn it into something for mental health.
We're on the banks of the Royal Canal. We're standing beside what was an old lockkeeper's cottage. The cottage was built in the early 20s and it housed a lockkeeper and his family. Obviously, as the canal traffic declined, a lot of the cottages fell into disrepair. This one, around the mid-60s, became very derelict and it became a site for antisocial activity. There was a lot of on-site drinking, and then in the 80s and the 90s it became a centre for drug abuse and drug use. As a community, we recognised the potential for the site, and over a period of time we started to build a plan, and a number of groups and organisations came together. Currently it's used as community storage. We have kayaks and we have bicycles here that the community groups use, and we trying to utilise the space along the Royal Canal banks. Our long-term objective is to make it a communal room where groups and organisations can come along and we can host events.
You should make cities so that you invite people to walk and bike as much as possible. They'll live 7 years longer. They will have a much better life. And we know that if you invite people to drive cars by making more roads, you get more traffic. If you make nice places, they come, they use them.
That's what we want.
We are a walking animal, a social walking animal.
If you see a city with many children and many old people using the city, the public spaces, then it's a sign that there is a good quality for people in that particular city.